What would you do if your world began to unravel? Not with an explosion, but with a whisper. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow to find the streets outside your window eerily silent. The shops you rely on shuttered, the power in your home flickering, your bank account, once a source of comfort, now worthless. The government, absent, chaotic, or worse, silently complicit in the collapse. You'd probably tell yourself it's temporary, that someone somewhere has a plan to fix this, but deep down, a question nags at you, what if this isn't temporary? What if this is the beginning of the end? The truth is, collapse doesn't come with a loud announcement. It doesn't knock on the door and declare itself. It creeps in slowly like a thief in the night, taking little by little until one day you wake up and realize everything you counted on, your stability, your safety, your future is gone. Now imagine living like this every single day. For millions of people around the world, this isn't a hypothetical. This is their reality. Right now, entire countries are crumbling beneath the weight of corruption, greed, and mismanagement. Governments have failed them. Economies have betrayed them. And the people are left to pick up the pieces of a life they didn't break. But here's the terrifying part. Collapse isn't isolated. It's not just their problem. Collapse spreads. Like a virus, it crosses borders, infecting neighboring systems. It destabilizes economies, shifts power dynamics, and creates ripples that can reach even the most seemingly secure nations. Could your country be next? Think about it. What would it take to break the systems you trust, your government, your economy, your community? Would you even see it coming, or would you be like the millions before you, caught off guard, scrambling to survive in a world that no longer makes sense? Let me paint you a picture. It starts small. Inflation creeps up just a little at first. Groceries cost more. Rent becomes harder to afford. You tell yourself it's fine, you can manage, but then it gets worse. The money in your pocket doesn't stretch like it used to. Savings you worked years to build start to dwindle, then disappear. Businesses close their doors, jobs vanish. The people around you begin to change, not just strangers, but your neighbors, your friends, even your fams. The tension is palpable. A mother in line at the grocery store looks down at her children and realizes she can't afford to feed them. A man at the bank watches helplessly as his life savings evaporate with a keystroke. Anger brews, protests erupt, and then the silence breaks. But here's the catch. The collapse never feels real until it's too late. At first, you'll hear whispers. Things are getting worse. Did you hear about the riots? My company just laid off half its staff. You might even ignore them. Maybe you're lucky enough to think it won't touch you, until it does. Suddenly, those whispers turn into screams, and you're standing in the middle of it, wondering how you didn't see it coming. This is the story of collapse. And today we're diving into the 10 fastest collapsing countries, nations that are unraveling so quickly it feels like watching a slow-motion car crash, impossible to look away, yet horrifying to witness. Each of these countries tells a story of greed and corruption, of leaders too blind or too selfish to see the destruction they've caused, a story of families torn apart by systems that were supposed to protect them, and a story of how quickly a nation can fall when the cracks in its foundation are ignored for too long. But here's what makes this even more terrifying. These aren't distant, isolated places. They're countries that not long ago were thriving, places with booming economies, strong governments, and people who believed in their future. Now, they're cautionary tales, and if it can happen to them, what's stopping it from happening anywhere else? I think about your own country for a moment. Do you trust your leaders to guide you through a crisis? Do you believe the systems in place, your economy, your infrastructure, your social safety nets, are strong enough to withstand pressure? What if they're not? What if everything you believe about stability is built on a foundation just as shaky as these collapsing nations? Consider this. Every one of these countries we're about to discuss had citizens who thought it could never happen here. They were wrong. They believed their government would protect them. They believed their economy was too strong to fail. They believed they were safe. And then, one day, they weren't. Here's the chilling truth. Collapse doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about borders, wealth, or power. It's a slow poison that starts small, a bad policy here, a corrupt leader there, but over time, it grows. It infects every part of a nation, rotting it from the inside out until there's nothing left but chaos. And the people, They're left to fend for themselves. Imagine the pain of watching your life's work, the house you built, the business you grew, the family you've protected slip away. Imagine the fear of not knowing where your next meal will come from or if you'll be safe when night falls. Can you feel it? The unease creeping in? The questions you don't want to ask but can't ignore. What if the systems you rely on every day, your bank, your grocery store, your government, disappeared tomorrow? What would you do? Could you survive? This isn't just a story about other countries. This is a warning. Because the truth is, no country is immune. Not yours, not mine. The cracks are always there. You just have to look closely enough to see them. So as we explore the 10 fastest collapsing countries, ask yourself this. What would it take for your world to fall apart? Could you spot the signs before it's too late? Or would you, like so many others, wake up one day to find that the life you built is gone? Stick with me because the answers might terrify you, but they might also save you. First up, Venezuela. Let's start with a question that will haunt you. What would you do if the dollar in your pocket was worth less by the time you got to the store than when you left your house? If the things you worked tirelessly for, food, medicine, even a roll of toilet paper, were suddenly out of reach? Now imagine that's your everyday life. Imagine waking up every single morning knowing that no matter how hard you try, how much you fight, the world around you is slipping further into chaos. Welcome to Venezuela! Once celebrated as a beacon of prosperity in Latin America, Venezuela stood tall as the richest country in the region. Oil fields shimmered like golden rivers beneath its surface, fueling an economy so powerful that its citizens lived better than many in the Western world. But today, that dream has turned into a nightmare. The streets of Caracas, once vibrant with life, now echo with silence broken only by the sound of empty footsteps. Shelves in supermarkets are barren, and what's left is priced beyond what anyone can afford. Families barter what little they have, soap for flour, rice for painkillers. A father trades his watch, a gift from his own father, just to buy a loaf of bread for his children. And the question is, how did it come to this? To understand Venezuela's collapse, we need to go back to its golden days, a time when the streets of Caracas buzzed with energy, when Venezuelan oil flowed like a river of wealth, lifting millions out of poverty. For decades, oil was the lifeblood of this nation, pumping billions into its economy and creating a middle class that lived comfortably, even luxuriously. Cars filled the streets, students attended some of the finest schools in Latin America, and the future looked brighter than the sun over Angel Falls. But then, greed crept in. The government became addicted to oil money. It stopped diversifying its economy. Why build factories or invest in agriculture? They thought when oil will always provide. And at first it worked. The wealth poured in. Politicians promised the moon, and for a while they delivered. But oil is a fickle master, and when prices fell, Venezuela found itself standing on a house of cards. This wasn't just a financial crisis, it was a societal implosion. Imagine watching your paycheck shrink every week. Inflation spiraling out of control until your monthly salary couldn't even buy a gallon of milk. In Venezuela, hyperinflation became the cruelest of dictators. Prices doubled, then tripled, then skyrocketed so fast that stores stopped putting up price tags. They didn't bother because by the time you reached the checkout counter, the cost had already risen. Picture this. A man stands in line at a bakery clutching a stack of Bolivar bills as thick as a phone book. He's been waiting for hours just to buy bread, but by the time he reaches the counter, the price has gone up again. He doesn't have enough. He walks away, empty-handed, as the bread he so desperately needs is handed to someone with just a little more cash. Can you feel his frustration, his helplessness, his rage? Now, let's talk about survival, because in Venezuela, every day is a fight to stay alive. Mothers wait in lines that stretch for blocks, hoping to buy formula for their babies. Doctors perform surgeries by flashlight because the power is out and hospitals have no supplies. Families scour garbage dumps for scraps of food. Imagine the pain of looking into your child's eyes and telling them there's nothing to eat. Imagine watching a loved one suffer because you can't afford the medicine they need, or worse, because the medicine doesn't exist anymore. Would you fight? Would you flee? Or would you give up? That's the choice Venezuelans face every day, and yet, amidst the despair, there's resilience. People barter, they grow food in their backyards, they find ways to laugh, to love, to keep going. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Nicolas Maduro. The president of Venezuela, Maduro, inherited a country already on the brink from his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, but instead of pulling Venezuela back from disaster, he pushed it over the edge. Under Maduro's leadership, corruption reached staggering heights. Billions disappeared into the pockets of government officials while the people starved. Political opponents were jailed, protests were crushed, and the media was silenced. But the most chilling moment came when Maduro released a video of himself feasting on gourmet meals, smoking cigars, and laughing with his family while his citizens lined up for hours just to buy rice. What kind of leader does that? For many, that was the breaking point. It wasn't just incompetence, it was cruelty, a deliberate flaunting of privilege in the face of unimaginable suffering. So where does Venezuela go from here? Many experts believe a full collapse is inevitable, a military coup perhaps, or a complete breakdown of law and order. Others hold out hope that the people will rise up, that democracy will return, that Venezuela will rebuild. But for the millions still living this nightmare, hope is a luxury they can't afford. They wake up every day and fight against hunger, against despair, against a system that has failed them at every turn, and yet they keep going. Would you have that strength? Could you endure what they have endured? And here's the part that should terrify you. Venezuela isn't an isolated case, it's a warning. Because the forces that brought Venezuela to its knees, corruption, mismanagement, economic dependency, exist in every country. The cracks are there, even if you can't see them yet. So ask yourself, do you trust your leaders to protect you? Do you believe your country is immune to collapse? Are you prepared if the unthinkable happens? Because Venezuela thought it was immune too. Stick around as we explore the next country on this list. If Venezuela's story shook you, what comes next will leave you speechless. Number 2. North Korea. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to live in a place where freedom is an illusion, where every word you speak, every thought you have is monitored, judged, and controlled? Imagine a world where smiling too broadly could be seen as dissent, where praising the wrong person could mean death. Now picture an entire nation forced to exist in this shadow, not for days, not for years, but for generations. Welcome to North Korea. This isn't just a country, it's a living dystopia, a place where hope is rationed like food and fear is the only currency that never devalues. You've heard the rumors, seen the headlines, but do you really know what life is like inside the most secretive regime on earth? Today, we're pulling back the curtain, revealing the hidden horrors, and asking the question no one dares to. How much longer can this nation survive before it collapses under its own weight? Imagine waking up every day in a country where the truth is a carefully curated performance. In North Korea, reality is scripted, staged, and broadcasted like a never-ending episode of The Truman Show. But here, there are no escape routes, no Jim Carrey to break through the facade, only 26 million people trapped in a twisted narrative they're forced to believe. Life begins with indoctrination. From the moment a child can speak, they're taught to worship the Kim dynasty, not respect, not admire, worship. Pictures of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un hang in every home, every school, every public space. Families are required to bow before them daily, their expressions of devotion scrutinized by neighbors who double as informants. Can you imagine living in a world where even your loyalty isn't your own? The media, the schools, the very air they breathe, all saturated with propaganda. North Koreans are told their nation is the most advanced in the world, their leader a godlike figure protecting them from the horrors of the outside. And yet, most of them know better. They've seen the cracks in the facade. They've felt the pangs of hunger, the chill of unheated homes, the loss of loved ones to labor camps for crimes as trivial as misplacing a newspaper. In North Korea, hunger is a constant companion. Famine isn't an anomaly, it's a way of life. During the 1990s, the Great Famine claimed as many as 3 million lives. Entire families starved to death while the regime spent billions building statues and launching missiles. And even now, decades later, food scarcity is a daily struggle for most. Imagine rationing a single bowl of rice for your entire family. Imagine feeding your children tree bark and grass because that's all you can find. Imagine watching them grow weaker with each passing day, their eyes hollow, their laughter gone. How would you explain to them why this is happening? How would you find the strength to carry on? Does the regime blame sanctions, natural disasters, anything but its own policies? But the truth is plain to see: North Korea's leaders prioritize weapons over welfare, power over people. Even as millions starve, the government pours resources into its nuclear program, showcasing its missiles to the world while its citizens beg for crumbs. We are the envy of the world. This is the mantra drilled into every North Korean's mind. But behind closed doors, they know better. They've heard whispers of the outside world, places where food is abundant, electricity constant, and freedom isn't just a dream. Some have even seen it for themselves, smuggling forbidden radios and DVDs that reveal a world far different from the one they're told exists. But knowing the truth is a dangerous burden. A slip of the tongue, a hint of doubt, and you could vanish overnight. Your family too. In North Korea, punishment is generational. If you're accused of disloyalty, your children and grandchildren will bear the consequences. How do you fight for freedom when the cost is everything you love? Defying the regime isn't just risky, it's suicidal. The Kim dynasty's grip on power is maintained through a network of fear so pervasive, it's become a way of life. Surveillance is everywhere. Neighbors spy on neighbors. Children are encouraged to report their parents. Imagine living in a world where trust doesn't exist. For those who dare to resist, the consequences are brutal. North Korea's labor camps are hell on earth, places where prisoners are worked to death, starved, and beaten. The United Nations has described them as akin to Nazi concentration camps. Yet they're not just for criminals, they're for anyone who dares to think differently. A misplaced joke, a moment of frustration, that's all it takes to disappear. Number 3, Yemen. Once called Arabia Felix or Happy Arabia, Yemen was a land of ancient culture, stunning landscapes, and thriving trade. Its mountains whispered legends, its deserts held secrets, and its people exuded resilience. But today, that resilience is tested like never before. The country is embroiled in a devastating civil war, foreign interventions, and an escalating humanitarian crisis that defies comprehension. Yemen's pain is layered, each one cutting deeper than the last. Hunger stalks the land like a predator, claiming the lives of children who should be laughing, learning, and dreaming. UNICEF reports that a child dies every 10 minutes from preventable causes, not from war wounds, but from hunger, disease, and a lack of basic health care. They say humanity rises in times of crisis, that we find strength in unity and compassion. But where is that humanity for Yemen? Where is the outcry, the intervention, the lifeline that could save millions? Instead, Yemen's plight is relegated to the back pages of newspapers, a footnote in the annals of global politics. Think about this. A 10-year-old boy in Yemen doesn't dream of being a doctor or a teacher. He dreams of a day without hunger. A 13-year-old girl doesn't imagine her wedding day. She imagines not being married off to pay her family's debts. These are the dreams of Yemen's children, dreams that should never exist. Number 4, El Salvador. What happens when a nation bets its future on a dream that seems too good to be true? El Salvador, a land of breathtaking landscapes and rich culture, now teeters on the edge of collapse, caught between ambition and harsh reality. Imagine a place where innovation clashes with instability, where promises of prosperity are overshadowed by the shadow of gang violence and poverty. Welcome to El Salvador, where hope and despair coexist in a fragile balance. In 2021, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, made a bold move that stunned the world, declaring Bitcoin as legal tender. For a country plagued by economic struggles and limited access to traditional banking, this seemed like a revolutionary step. The government promised financial inclusion, economic growth, and a chance for El Salvador to redefine itself on the global stage. El Salvador's embrace of Bitcoin wasn't just an economic experiment, it was a gamble with the livelihoods of millions. While the government poured resources into promoting cryptocurrency, many Salvadorans felt abandoned. The struggles of daily life, finding food, staying safe, securing education, remained unchanged, or worse, exacerbated. El Salvador stands at a crossroads. The decisions made today will shape its future for generations to come. Will the nation's gamble on Bitcoin lead to prosperity, or will it become a cautionary tale of ambition unchecked by reality? Will Salvadorans find the unity and resilience needed to overcome their challenges, or will the weight of their struggles prove too much to bear? Number 5, Myanmar. The world marvels at its golden pagodas and lush green hills, but beneath the surface lies a reality too grim to ignore. Political unrest, widespread violence, and a population caught in the crossfire of a battle they didn't choose. How does a nation so rich in potential find itself teetering on the brink of collapse? Let's uncover the truth. In 2021, the fragile progress made toward democracy was shattered by a military coup. The people, who had tasted the possibility of freedom, suddenly found themselves plunged back into darkness. Imagine waking up one morning to find that your voice, your vote, your very existence as a citizen had been erased. How would you feel? Angry? Helpless? Determined to fight back? Life in Myanmar today is a constant tightrope walk between hope and despair. The military junta rules with an iron fist, using fear as its primary weapon. Homes are raided in the dead of night. Families are torn apart. Those who dare to resist are labeled traitors, their lives snuffed out as warnings to others. Despite the oppression, the people of Myanmar refuse to give up. Their resilience is nothing short of extraordinary. In every corner of the country, stories of quiet heroism emerge: doctors treating injured protesters in secret, teachers running underground schools, and artists using their work to inspire and resist. Number 6. Argentina. Argentina wasn't always like this. In the early 20th century, it was among the wealthiest nations in the world. Buenos Aires sparkled as the Paris of South America, and its economy thrived on agriculture and trade. People lived in abundance with opportunities that seemed endless, but somewhere along the way the rhythm changed. How do you plan a future when your savings erode before your eyes? Parents worry about feeding their children, retirees see their pensions evaporate, and workers demand wages that can't keep pace with the relentless rise in prices. Every transaction feels like a battle against an invisible enemy, and the only certainty is uncertainty itself. The peso, once a symbol of national pride, is now an object of mockery. Some joke that it's better used as wallpaper than currency, while others hoard US dollars like lifeboats in a sinking ship. So can you blame them? How do you save for tomorrow when today's paycheck can't even buy you dinner? Ask any Argentinian what they truly want, and the answer is simple: stability. Not riches or extravagance, just a chance to live without fear of what tomorrow might bring. To save for their children's education without worrying about the peso's collapse. To build a business without being crushed by debt. To retire with dignity instead of desperation. But for many, these dreams feel impossibly out of reach. The system seems rigged against them, and every step forward is met with 2 steps back. Still, they hold on to hope, because what else is there? Number 7. Libya. Imagine waking up each day not knowing if your home will still stand, if your children will have food, if you'll survive another night. In Libya, this is the grim reality for millions. Bombings, kidnappings, and militia rule have replaced any semblance of normalcy. Hospitals are overwhelmed, schools are abandoned, and the simplest acts, buying groceries, walking down the street, are fraught with danger. For the average Libyan, hope feels like a cruel joke. How do you dream of a better future when the present is so unbearable? How do you rebuild when the very foundations of your nation are in ruins? One of Libya's greatest tragedies is the loss of control over its own destiny. Since the fall of Gaddafi, the country has been held hostage by militias. These armed groups rule with an iron fist, exploiting Libya's instability for their own gain. They control resources, intimidate civilians, and engage in brutal turf wars that leave entire neighborhoods in ruins. The government, weak and divided, is powerless to stop them. In many cases, it even relies on these militias to maintain a semblance of order, a Faustian bargain that only deepens Libya's suffering. For Libyans, the fear is twofold. The immediate danger posed by these militias and the longer-term fear that their country may never break free from their grip. How do you fight for freedom when your oppressors aren't foreign invaders but your own countrymen? Number 8. Zimbabwe. Imagine a nation once hailed as the breadbasket of Africa, a land so fertile and rich with resources that it was destined to lead the continent in prosperity. Now picture that same nation spiraling into a nightmare of hyperinflation, corruption, and despair. This is Zimbabwe, a country where hope has been eroded by decades of betrayal and mismanagement. What happens when a nation's dreams are crushed under the weight of greed and power? How does a society endure when its people are robbed of their future? Today, we dive deep into the heartache and resilience of Zimbabwe, a nation that symbolizes both the tragic cost of corruption and the unyielding spirit of its people. By the early 2000s, the government embarked on disastrous land reform policies, seizing farms from experienced farmers and redistributing them without proper planning. This act, hailed as a victory for indigenous empowerment, plunged the nation into chaos. Food production plummeted, and Zimbabwe's economy began its infamous freefall. Zimbabweans yearn for the days when their nation was a symbol of hope, when their land was abundant and their future secure. They want their children to grow up in a country where education is accessible, where jobs are plentiful, where hard work is rewarded. They dream of a Zimbabwe that can stand tall on the global stage, not as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to resilience and renewal. But these dreams feel distant. With each passing year, the weight of the past grows heavier, and the path to recovery seems more uncertain. Yet the desire for a better tomorrow remains, a flame that refuses to be extinguished. Number 9. Syria. What does it mean to live in a world reduced to rubble? Imagine a place where hope is a luxury, survival a daily struggle, and every sunrise brings with it the specter of death. Welcome to Syria, a country that was once a cradle of civilization, now a symbol of relentless suffering. A place where history whispers from ancient ruins, drowned out by the deafening roar of bombs. What does it mean to exist in a nation that has already fallen, and how much longer can its people endure? This isn't just another conflict zone, this is humanity's darkest hour playing on repeat. The world watches, some with sympathy, others with indifference, but one question lingers like smoke over a devastated city: can Syria ever rise again? Syria's story wasn't always written in blood. This is a land of ancient wonders, the crossroads of civilizations, the birthplace of art, philosophy, and trade. Damascus, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth, was once a thriving hub of culture and commerce. For centuries, the country stood as a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. But everything changed in 2011. What began as peaceful protests during the Arab Spring quickly spiraled into a full-blown civil war. A regime desperate to cling to power met calls for freedom with brutality, and the country fractured under the weight of its own divisions. Syria became a chessboard for global powers, each pursuing their own interests while its people suffered. Close your eyes and imagine this: your home reduced to rubble, your family scattered, your future uncertain. Imagine waking up every day wondering if it will be your last. Imagine having to choose between staying in a war zone or risking everything to flee, knowing that safety is not guaranteed. Now ask yourself, what would you do? How would you survive? Where would you find the strength to carry on? This is the reality for millions of Syrians. Their struggle is not just a headline or a statistic, it's a human story, one that deserves to be heard, understood, and acted upon. Number 10. Russia. The collapse of Russia would send shockwaves around the globe, but it's not just the responsibility of the Russian people to prevent this. The international community has a role to play, whether through diplomacy, sanctions, or support for those fighting for change. Imagine living in a country where you're constantly told you're the greatest, the strongest, the most resilient, only to realize it's all a facade. Imagine watching your friends and family struggle to make ends meet, knowing there's little you can do to help. Imagine dreaming of a better life but feeling trapped by circumstances beyond your control. This isn't just Russia's story. It's a story of resilience, of survival, and of the human spirit's refusal to be broken. But it's also a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked and when a government forgets its duty to its people. And you, the viewer, have a role too. Share this story, raise awareness, demand accountability from world leaders. Because the people of Russia deserve more than just our pity, they deserve our support. Now it's your turn. What do you think the future holds for Russia? Will the regime adapt, or is collapse inevitable? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's start a conversation. Because understanding is the first step toward change, and change begins with us. This is George Galloway from Inside Report signing out.